Kia ora Aotearoa, welcome whānau to the War on News, your weekly sacred cow slaughtering assault on current affairs, beamed live from the palatial Stratus News bunker buried deep beneath the heart of the Greyland Republic. If this show is an Auckland earthquake, ooh, and tonight's political media crimes against reason kill zone, Cancer now more electable than anti-MMP Vote for Change group after token lefty and white supremacist founding members leave. With extremists like Don Brash, who needs far-right hate merchants like Kathy Hodges? In Saudi Arabia, Muslim women are fighting to drive. In Auckland, they can't get on a bus. Plus this week's Sex in the Super City and the Wank of the Week award. Leading the War on News this week, brothers and sisters, in light of Alistair Thompson's musings on gynecological employment sick days, Prime Minister John Key says he doesn't know if gender is the reason why women are paid less. He said, "I don't know if they are discriminated against because of their gender. I don't have any data on that." The reason why John Key has no data on whether or not gender plays a role in lower wages is because when he first came into government, he shut down the pay equity unit, which used to give the government that data. If see no child labour, hear no child labour, speak no child labour can be the building blocks of a free trade deal with India, I suppose see no gender discrimination, hear no gender discrimination, speak no gender discrimination can also be a domestic social policy. Combine this with national gutting of early childhood budgets and Paula Bennett's recently announced baby farms, and any female voter voting for National this election makes about as much sense as pacifists going to war. Brothers and sisters, have we got to the farcical position that we actually need public health campaigns urging teenagers to smoke real marijuana and not the synthetic cannabis chronic after revelations of all sorts of prescription drugs turning up in packets of their Pineapple Express super juicy bud-tastic range of fake weed crap? How come we can move like the wind in shutting down a drug that has been suspected in the death of one teenager when alcohol, which kills 20 a week and causes 200 assaults a day, seemingly can't be regulated beyond raising the drinking age to 20, as if our country's addiction to alcohol is just a youth problem. The level of denial one needs to have reached to believe that raising the drinking age will do anything if it isn't connected to banning booze in supermarkets, lowering blood alcohol levels and zero tolerance on advertising is so deep one would need to believe we are actually winning the war on drugs by continuing with this prohibition farce. Why is it always the most uptight arseholes that desperately need a joint? Forget planking, Peter Dunn. Try bonging instead. Maybe if he chilled out, his toupee would finally accept his Facebook friend request. Brothers and sisters, shock, horror. Dunedin University's Radio 1 is being sold by the Otago University Student Association as the voluntary student membership bill inches closer to destroying all of the university associations, forcing them to sell their assets. The Chill's Martin Phillips, Lawrence Arabia's James Milne and TV3's Samantha Hayes attacked the decision to sell Radio 1 and provides this week's perfect example of this country's sleepy hobbit doesn't see the wider ramifications until it hits them syndrome. Don't get me wrong, whānau. It's great that cultural luminaries like Samantha Hayes are attacking the sale of Radio 1, but where were they all 12 months ago when ACT Party free market zombie Roger Douglas was holding his Spanish Inquisitions into destroying student unions? Because the only reason Otago are being forced to consider selling Radio 1 is because student unionship provides the cash for them to run their assets. No cash flow, goodbye assets. I turned up at the select committee last year. I told Roger Douglas to his face that banning student unions was an intellectual patsy being given to him in the vain hope that he would shut up about flat tax and that he was nothing short of a political vandal for destroying student unions. That us as sleepy hobbits can't connect the reality of the policy beyond John Key's smile and wave routine is an indictment into how easily led we are. Wake up, sleepy hobbits! To the headlines, whānau. Cancer now more electable than anti-MMP Vote for Change group after token lefty and white supremacist founding members leave. Cost of anti-MMP campaign? $500,000. Cost of mainstream propaganda? $1 million. Not checking a founding member as a white supremacist? Priceless. Look at that, whānau. I became the news this week after outing a white supremacist founding member of the Vote for Change group. It seems I've managed to, in the first week, single-handedly discredit and take out the entire right-wing plan to stymie MMP. Oops. I haven't seen so much self-mutilation from a group since the Jim Jones mass suicide in the 1970s. Now the white supremacist and token lefty have been culled. It's just the old white money men of National and ACT, the political representatives of the elite, who want to destroy the proportional representation that forces them to listen to other New Zealanders when decisions get made. I personally support MMP because it is more democratic to have a broad representation of your actual population as political leaders rather than the vested old boys network ACT and National so readily personify. In the bad old days, National and ACT want to drag us back to, Parliament was made up of over 70% white, old, straight, rich men. New Zealand is not comprised of 70% white, old, straight, rich men, and as such, any screams over MMP are really just the groaning gasp of a group within society desperate for the good old days when the elites could manipulate the democratic mandate any which way they pleased and power rested firmly with white, old, straight, rich men. Under first past the post, New Zealand was Aotearoa, land of the wrong, uptight crowd. Because what these Shire Volk who hate MMP are really saying is that they hate being forced to divvy up the fruits of society with other voices outside their elite cliques. That's why I think the MMP criticisms are invalid and as intellectually skanky as having a white supremacist as a founding member. The good news is that with Bob Harvey's leaving, the employment market has just opened up for a new baby boomer token lefty with fewer standards. What's Bill Ralston doing? Moving on with the headlines, whānau. Last week, I suggested appointing a hate merchant like far-right blogger Kathy Odgers as an ACT Party candidate when she advocates sterilisation bonus programs to stop the pathetic heaving underclass from breeding, her words not mine, was too extremist for New Zealand politics. Whānau, I have to take that back. Who needs an extremist like Kathy Odgers when Don Brash will do? In his Little Hitler's speech to the National Party and Gumboots Federated Farmers last week, Don Brash vomited up a whole list of debunked climate change denial bullshit that only your slightly racist granddad believes after listening to Leighton Smith on ZB for a couple of hours. The Thames freezing over, medieval warming, Romans growing grapes, and the claim that a rise in temperature would be a good thing are all climate denial lies 101 that 5 minutes on the internet can all conclusively debunk. Alan Gibbs, the money man behind Don Brash's coup, is also the man who, alongside crazy climate denier Lord Monckton, is a policy analyst at the climate-denying front group International Climate Science Coalition. In 2008, Alan donated $100,000 to ACT. It was after that donation that ACT dumped their smart green environmental policy and started promoting climate denial bullshit like CO2 isn't pollution, it's your friend. Let's get this straight. Corporate climate denier donates money. Political party changes its policy to climate denial. And now the man who donated that money has put his candidate into power in a corporate political coup to regurgitate climate denial fantasies. Where is the mainstream media in this? Well, the mainstream media couldn't cover this story much this week because Happy fucking Feet swallowed some sand and needed on-the-hour news updates during his surgery. Don't feel cynical about hating the mainstream media, whānau. They deserve all the contempt we can muster. Your anger is a gift. Moving on with the headlines, whānau. So, a woman wearing a veil was kicked off a bus. Not because the bus driver didn't like Muslims, but because the driver had mask phobia. Seeing as New Zealand bus don't seem to understand what the word due means, I'm not surprised they have trouble with comprehending the word Islamophobia. Most dictionaries define due as an impending time frame. New Zealand bus define due as sometime this week. Their GPS message boards at bus stops in Auckland have more chance of predicting Jesus Christ's second coming than a bus on time. The reason New Zealand bus was so quick to spin this as mask phobia is because banning someone for riding on your bus for wearing a burqa would be about as culturally insensitive as renaming Charlie's orange juice Victor Charlie's now it's been bought out by Asahi. In Saudi Arabia, Muslim women are fighting to drive. In Auckland, they can't get on a bus. Whānau, are you feeling sexy? It's Sex in the Super City time. Whānau, other than Kiwi FM, what shit brown can't fly and cost us millions? The Rugby World Cup. Last week I bitched about all the Auckland inner city vandalism this Rugby World Cup is causing, from ruining century-old staircases, painting over legitimate graffiti art, and the creation of Rugby World Cup assault alleyways on K Road. This week, I'd like to focus on how much bloody money this whole damn thing is going to cost, because alongside the rebuild of Christchurch, which, let's be honest, isn't going to start anytime soon, the Rugby World Cup was held up by Treasury as the only other event that would lift the economy this year. To date, we've still got 700,000 tickets to sell. If the Rugby World Cup doesn't fire, we're in a lot of economic trouble. And it's only a matter of time that after selling half the assets, John Key will be explaining why him selling the other half won't technically be breaking an election promise in the way he technically didn't lie about not raising GST. Adding insult to injury, police are now hassling unionists and Mana Party members over Rugby World Cup protests, which sounds about as criminally urgent as chasing chronic dealers at school balls. So not only does the Rugby World Cup end up costing us a bundle, it gives the police bullshit excuses to expand their powers and hassle activists. Yay! Can we just hurry this Rugby World Cup up and choke already? No, let's hand out this week's Wanko of the Week award. This week's Wanko of the Week, brothers and sisters, has to go to the mainstream media, who, in the wake of their bias and miscalling of the Teito Tokerau by-election, managed to, in the last 7 days, plumb new lows of banality. I'm not sure what I can't stand listening to more. Paul Henry back on Radio Live, or Oliver Driver as the new voice of Comedy Central. They're both like Wolverine's nails on Glenn Beck's blackboard. The week started like an episode of The Twilight Zone on acid when TV3's film critic awarded Kung Fu Panda 2 4 stars. Did DreamWorks buy 3 extra stars with their TV advertising spend, did they? This was eclipsed by the Herald on Sunday, who ran an article on how sexy our SAS soldiers were and how they could be male catwalk models. Yes, Herald on Sunday. Propping up a corrupt narco state regime while we hand over civilians to known torture units is so fucking sexy. Perhaps Herald on Sunday need to see some pictures of Afghanistan kids our bombs accidentally blow up. They're wearing brain splatter this season, I'm told. The worst mainstream Fox News media moment of this week, however, Whānau, went to stuff.co.nz, who didn't even manage to get around to covering the story outing a white supremacist attempting to adopt less representative forms of electoral system. The big story Stuff went with on the day was that the bloody penguin is a boy. Apparently knowing the gender of a horribly lost penguin is a bigger story than a white supremacist being outed as a founding member of a group attempting to change our political system and the resignation of the only token lefty. How do they manage not to be sued by the Consumer Guarantees Act for false advertising by calling themselves news agencies? The only good thing about the mainstream media this week, Whānau, was the announcement of the Michael Laws Ken Mayer celebrity boxing match. Never before have so many New Zealanders wanted to be Ken Mayer. That's it for tonight, folks. Don't forget, Citizen A plays Friday, 8 PM, Freeview 21 and Sky 89. Follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter and Facebook site. It has all the shows posted up online and allows you to befriend other like-minded citizens for romantic news moments. Good night, New Zealand. You stay classy, Aotearoa. Righto.